us into our next conversation. Employee theft can shake an organization to its core. Trust is lost, morale is damaged, and the financial impact can be devastating.
While the age, profession, and motivation of the average embezzlers can vary, one thing they all have in common is they are usually trusted the most and suspected the least.
And joining the conversation now, we have forensic accountant and the #1 best-selling author of the book, Did You Hire a Fraud? Thank you for being here, Mrs. Bernadette. Oh my goodness, it's up there. Bernadette Harris, Bernadette L. Harris. I knew there was an initial in there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now first, before we get to the book and the topics that you're going to discuss, you are a tax and forensic accountant. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so people ask me that all the time. So forensic accountants are accountants that have, in addition to accounting skills, we have auditing and investigative skills. And we use those skills to basically tell the story that numbers tell. So my clients hire me to teach them how to protect their businesses from fraud and some of the schemes that fraudsters perpetrate.
How much of a problem is this then? I would imagine enough that you've had to write a book about it, but how much of a problem is this that people may not know it is such a problem?
It's a huge problem. Fraud, insider fraud or occupational fraud, it takes about 10% of an annual company's revenue every year. So on average, it's about $1 billion a year that is lost to insider fraud. And small business owners are impacted the most because they don't have the capacity to rebound from such a loss.
So are there any warning signs? How do you know?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's the reason I wrote the book. I'm all about educating people because I want to help small businesses as well as medium-sized businesses stay in business. So in the book, I talk about some of the schemes, some of the stats, and the signs and solutions that business owners can put into place to protect themselves from fraudsters. So I have a cute acronym just to kind of help your listeners remember. And these are some of the common signs or common schemes that fraudsters use. So the first one is F in fraud, and it stands for falsified wages. So this happens when you manipulate the hours that you work or the rate of pay. So John entered, he worked 35 hours, but he enters and approves 40. And so he's getting paid for more than what he worked. So a business owner would want to separate those duties. Don't allow the person who's entering payroll to approve payroll. In the R in fraud stands for refunds. So you have an employee who's issuing unauthorized or even fraudulent refunds. They may be issuing refunds for a purchase that never even took place. And so in this situation, a business owner can separate those duties as well, and the person who's ringing up the sale cannot issue a refund for the sale. A stands for altered receipts. And do you know that there are websites where you can go to get fake receipts to submit to your reimbursement request?
I did not know that.
It is awful. And they look real and legitimate, and you can say like the company that you've spent the money on. So business owners just need to pay a closer attention to the actual receipts to see if they're plausible. Sometimes the receipts don't match the dates that they've actually taken the trip, or the times are off. Just paying attention to those small things might make a difference. I mean, how many times have you gone to the gas station and there's already a gas receipt there?
Right.
And so you can just pull that gas receipt and say, hey, I didn't spend $25 on gas. This SUV just spent $50. I spent $50.
Right.
And submit that altered receipt or fake receipt. Then you have the U, which is for unreported sales. And a lot of times people think of it as small, like if you go to Starbucks and the cashier drops the 5 in her pocket instead of the cash register. But this can happen in a big organization too. I've read a case where a property manager, there was a tenant who always paid his rent in cash. So she took his apartment off the books, and it looked vacant. So every time he paid his rent, she pocketed the cash.
Oh, my.
So that's an unreported sale. And then you have D for duplicate receipts. And duplicate receipts are just that. So if a business owner doesn't have rules in place for the time period that you can submit a reimbursement, then a person can submit the reimbursement for a plane ticket twice. So we submit the reimbursement this time, and next month it's like, oh, I forgot to include my plane ticket. And so those are some of the schemes that are happening, and they happen very, very easily because business owners aren't paying attention.
You said this is particularly difficult for small businesses, and that might not even be 3 or 4 people that are part of a business. You're talking maybe as many as 100 people in a small business, that this can be very debilitating to.
Exactly, exactly, because you don't, when you think about 5% of your gross revenues being lost to fraud, most small businesses don't have that kind of a profit margin to start with in the beginning. So who can give away 5%? And if you do, why not give away that 5% to something, to a good cause, or to hire more staff, or to give your deserving employees a raise? There's a whole lot of good stuff you can do with the $5,000 that some fraudster is taking from your business.
And sometimes we're talking thousands of dollars, but other times we're talking into the millions of. There was a recent article about a woman accused of embezzling almost $1.53 million from her employer?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
So because she has control. She's the person that's writing the checks. She's approving the checks. I've seen it in those situations and in that particular story where they get credit cards in the company's name and they use the credit cards to pay for personal stuff and pay for the credit cards with the company expenses. It's just people aren't paying attention. And sadly, you know, like we said in the beginning, the fraudster is the person that you trust the most and you suspect the least. They don't look like what you think they look like. They're sweet grandmas, they bake cookies, and sometimes they're really nice soccer moms and they take from the Little League team. So we have to get out of the mindset that a fraudster looks a certain way, because they don't. They don't.
All right, and you can find all of this information in Bernadette's book, Bernadette L. Harris. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
And here's the information for you. You can visit Bernadette's website at trustbernadette.com.
And for a copy of her book, Did You Hire a Fraud?, visit didyouhireafraud.com.
Lots of information there.
Yeah.